Welcome to the Wellness Business Podcast. Simple strategies to cut through the online noise to fast track the growth of your wellness business with Karen Paddock and Kathleen Legris.
Hey everyone, here we are, another brand new episode of the Wellness Business Podcast. Hey Kathleen, how's it going?
Hey Karen, it's going great. Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to this lady. She is a phenomenal resource, and I'm so glad you suggested her.
Yeah. So we are introducing all of you to a very good friend of mine. Her name is Joanne. And let me tell you a little bit about her before we get officially started. So Joanne is known online as the entrepreneurial enabler and creator of her signature program, Build Your Fitness and Health Empire. She's a serial entrepreneur, best known for her self-made empire in the fitness and health industry. SJ, all of her friends call her SJ. SJ is proud to have been named as one of the 10 people who will change your life by City Life magazine. Her name and brand stood proudly next to celebrity investor Robert, and I'm probably going to smear his name, Herjavec from Shark Tank and Dragon's Den. She is a proud former fitness junkie who has now turned the tables and took her online business from 0 to 1 million in her first 18 months by helping thousands of entrepreneurs learn, apply, and leverage the power of branding and online marketing in today's digital landscape. SJ, hey girl, how you doing?
What's going on? How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're so glad you're here. This whole topic of branding, and we're really going to dive into some cool pieces of this topic, not traditional, what most people think about branding. And I love the perspective that you bring to this conversation. So we're excited to get started.
Awesome. So am I.
Yeah. Welcome.
So for those of you, well, you probably don't know that actually I met Joanne back in March of 2014 when I attended Lori Kennedy's Wellness Business Summit. That was actually the first time I had met Lori Kennedy in person too. We had developed a friendship online, as many of you are doing with one another. And she was having an event, the Wellness Business Summit. And so I went, and SJ was a speaker. She did a presentation there about branding. And I remember, SJ, you don't even know this, but I remember when you walked up on stage and I was thinking, like, who is this chick with the two first names, right? And what's she going to teach us here today? And I'll be honest, like, I still get goosebumps thinking back to that presentation because you were so vibrant and so into it and so passionate and so genuine that it just really just totally touched me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have her in front of my people. And I waited in I know you don't remember this, but I waited in this long line of people that just wanted their picture with you. And it's like, I didn't care about the picture. I just wanted to say, would you please do this presentation for my people?
But did we get a picture?
Yeah, we did get a picture. And when I got up there, I asked you and you were like, absolutely. Like you didn't even hesitate 1 second.
Awesome.
So I fell in love with you that day. I knew you were awesome. And you did a presentation like less than 30 days later for my whole tribe. And it went over like gangbusters.
That's awesome.
So I knew that way back then that, you know, you were definitely going to go somewhere really great with your business. You just you were just so different than anyone I had met. I was pretty new to that online space, and you were just so different. And so what I felt was like you weren't just encompassing this like fake brand. Like you were just like totally yourself up on that stage, and I could really feel that. And I just really wanted you to know that really was like the start of my thought process with you. And like, wow, it was so impressive.
That's really cool. I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Now, okay, so let's go back to that day for a few more minutes.
Cool.
And you told a story up on stage that day about how you reached out to a mentor that was very instrumental in the start of your business success. Could you tell us that story? Because I think our audience, it'll help them get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, for sure. I think this whole process of building a business as a personal brand, it's the craziest thing ever. So I did not have, like many people, you kind of know what you want. You have a big vision and you want to be successful and you want to get your message out and you want to help people. But there's so many things that you already know that you don't know. So when I was first starting out, my background is I was a personal trainer and had that locked down, right? I could talk squats and lunges all day long, no problem. But building a business and thinking like, what does this even look like? And in my mind, growing up, entrepreneurship and business was like, 10 men sitting around a boardroom table in suits. Like I had no idea, what was possible and how this would start. And I just remember coming to this point and thinking like, I need some business people in my life. Like all my friends are personal trainers and we hang out and that's cool. But I didn't have any entrepreneurs in my network, or I didn't really know what this all looked like. I would watch Shark's Tank and start watching these shows, and that's really all I had. So I didn't want to, put myself at a disadvantage and say, well, because I don't have parents who are entrepreneurs or because I'm not in these networks. So I made a conscious decision then saying like, I need some business people in my life. I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that looks like, but I know that I need to start entering into higher conversations. So I would literally like Google late at night. And I thought, there's people that speak at universities. There's people that speak, local to me. And if they're speaking about these topics, then they're the kind of people that I want to talk to. So I would just Google like Angel Investors Toronto, like not even knowing what that was like, right? So I have no idea what happens when someone wants a little bit of money to build their business. Like what's that process look like? Like I had no idea. So I just sent an email out at, in the middle of the night, probably to like 10 different people. And I just said, I'm a fitness professional. I'm local in Toronto. I have a vision of doing something else. And I don't even know what these things mean. I don't know. I would just love to have 5 minutes of your time to get on a quick phone call, just to pick your brain about these things. If you're open to it, I would be so appreciative. So I just sent out like this really casual email, and I shared when I share this story, I show the email. There's all kinds of like errors in it, and it's just like the worst email ever. But it was real, right? It was just like a real, honest, like vulnerable, like this is who I am. I have ambitions, and I just want 5 minutes of your time. And so this guy, Graham, he actually reached out and he said, why don't you come to my office? I was like, sure, I'll come to your office. Like anytime you name it, I'll just take 5 minutes. And, just coming with like a list of questions, showing him that I kind of prepared what I wanted to get out of the meeting. And, it really is just helpful to have someone else explain it to you, because when you're researching and Googling these complicated concepts that you know nothing about, and business to me was that complicated concept. And we just sat there for, I think, half an hour the first day, and he's been a mentor of mine ever since. And he's watched me grow, and he's watched me do this whole thing. And it really just has been it really has been like the foundation of saying, well, if you reach out and you ask for help, like there are people that will want to help you, as long as you show that you're willing to hustle, you're willing to do the work, you're willing to, do what it is that they say. And of course, that's just one of a few stories that I have now, but it's incredible. Like, the takeaway here is like, if you don't have those people in your life, get them.
Right. For sure. I love that story so much. And it just really says, because truthfully, I feel like I'm pretty brave with business and I'll ask things, but I don't think I could have done that, to tell you the truth. Especially like, I think I get stuck behind, like feeling like I need to know more than I really need to know. And I love that you just went in there, completely in a vulnerable state and just said, what you said, I don't know what I don't know. And I need you to help me figure it out. Like, what 100%. Are the pieces that I need to know? So that is so awesome. And I hope everyone listening just really enjoyed that story, because it says so much about you, right? Like that you really, truly do want to build your business, and you've done such an amazing job, and that you have to be willing to turn over some rocks and look for those people that, like you said, will really move you forward. And a lot of them are willing to say yes if you just ask the question.
If you just ask, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, that's so important. I think it's one of the things, like what a simple thing that you did, but look at what an impact it's had on your business. Right?
Absolutely. And now I have people coming to me asking me for things. And there's definitely two ways to look at this. There can be one, hey, this is what I'm doing on my business. Can we sit down and have a coffee? Well, it's like, I can't have coffees with everyone who wants to build their business. But if you reach out and you can just tell with the way people are approaching it. Like, I know you're really busy and I just have a specific question. I'm feeling really stuck right now. Like, do you have 5 minutes? Absolutely. I have 5 minutes for anyone who reaches out to me. So it's really just understanding, the boundaries of time. And if someone's being like, if we got on the phone for 5 minutes, I'm probably going to talk to you for 10 or 20, but it's just really being mindful of someone's time, of what they're doing and what that's worth to have a conversation. And then leading from that approach of being really grateful for 5 minutes and expressing that gratitude and showing up prepared. And then you'll be amazed at how, cause it feels good to give. Right. So you'll be amazed at how people will want to talk to you and will help you.
I love that. But we also love that you're going to be talking about brand versus business and the fact that it's so important to really step into the role of our brand. Many health coaches, as I'm sure you know, they're not always comfortable being the face of their brand, even though they want a successful business. And I can speak from experience. When I first started out, I wasn't using my own picture. I just felt very intimidated to put myself out there. So I know your insight in this is going to be very beneficial to our listeners. So we're excited to hear your insights today.
Yeah, this is an awesome conversation. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so really, and especially in today's world in the online space, our branding opportunities are very different. And we have so many more opportunities than we did before. So how would you say the digital landscape, the digital marketing landscape has changed the game really to our advantage for personal brands?
Yeah, I always joke, I think I'm the spokesperson for the internet. It's really created this level playing field for us, right? Because we all have the same access to the free Instagram account, to the free Facebook account. We have all access, website. You can build a website for relatively cheap these days. Whereas maybe, 5-10 years ago, you were looking at this whole complex thing, right? So there's all these awesome tools available. So it's changed the game, for the better, because we all have access to it. It's a level playing field. That being said, it does make it, I hesitate to use the word overwhelming, but that's usually the word that resonates with people who are trying to navigate the space, because there's so many different tools. We think we have to do it all. We think that we need to show up on all of it. We think that, we need to master Instagram and then have a perfect website and then have a blog and then do YouTube videos. So, I do want to touch on that, but there's an analogy that I want to share about the brand and business to kind of set this conversation up. I think it's really helpful. This is something that it took me a while to figure this out. And when I reverse engineer, why did my stuff work? Why do my programs sell? Why do I get clients? I think that I've really been able to separate my brand and my business. And when you're building a business as a personal brand, you have to look at it like different departments, right? So if we were building a corporation, we would have marketing meetings, we would have, team meetings, we would have all these other kinds of meetings. So I have brand meetings with my business and I have business meetings. So the analogy that I like to use is I like to use an analogy of a Ferrari, right? So when you think about a Ferrari, you think about this like usually red, really fast and shiny, and it turns heads and you see it and everyone's kind of like looking at it and it looks good and it stands out and it's awesome, right? That's the brand. That's what people think of you. That's what they see. That's what shows up. The perception is it's cool, it's fast, it's expensive, it's the best, like all these things. That's the brand. But what's underneath the hood of the Ferrari is the engine. And the engine are, all the other, I don't know too many, parts of the engine, but the engine is underneath the hood. It's what people do not see, right? But that's really what makes the Ferrari work, right? So it's without the engine, it's all show, no good. You can't just have a shell and expect it to work. It's just going to sit there. You also can't just have an engine. No one's going to want to buy it. It's not going to sell because it doesn't have a shell, right? So I look at the engine of my business as my actual, the business, the stuff that people don't see. Like right now we're shooting a video. They're not, we're creating audio. Like this is kind of, the audio would be the shell and the video here would be the engine. My sales funnels, my emails, my everything that I geek out on behind the scenes of my business when I've got my hair in a pineapple bun and my glasses on, that's me working on my engine. And when it comes to my Instagram or looking at my graphics or my photo shoot or my copy, like that's the shell. So you have to have both in order to make this whole thing work. And naturally, as entrepreneurs, as personal brands, we're going to gravitate towards one based on what we're comfortable with or what we prefer or what we're good at. So I find that most people will, spend lots of time on the blog and making their branding. So that's their pictures and Instagram filters and make that look good. But they don't focus enough on the engine. They're not building their funnels, or they're not working on the actual strategy. Or some people don't want to do that because they don't want to put themselves out there. So then they're writing emails and then they're doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So you really have to look at this car, and you need to really understand that I need both. One's not going to work without the other. And if I'm naturally, gravitating towards working on the engine, I also have to dedicate some time and some focus to making sure that it sells, because you can have the fastest engine in the world. If it's not showing up and it's not impressing people and it's not making people think, wow, that's awesome, I like that, it's never going to sell.
I love that analogy. Yeah, that makes it really, really clear. So here's kind of a trick question then, because I have a feeling this is what our listeners are wondering, because I know you don't like to use that word overwhelm, but I know that is how they describe how they're feeling. 100%. So would you say, so you have to work on the brand, which is the shell. That's what people perceive, right? And the business. So do you have a recommendation? How should they split that time? Should it be 50-50?
So my recommendation is always going to be to build the engine first, not to not worry about your brand, but there's no point in having this perfect Instagram account and this perfect branding and all these things that we think we have to do if there's no back end that's going to collect a lead and take them through a sales process. I mean, anyone who's listening, I'm pretty sure, is in the business of a business, not a hobby. So the goal is to build an audience and to make sales. So until you have that infrastructure set up, your lead generation and that back end in place, it never has to be perfect, by the way. It's never going to be perfect, but just set up so that at least you're collecting a lead, so that when you are putting your stuff out there, it's not going to waste. Like, you're not just putting it out there and there's no mechanism to leverage that. So in terms of how much time and energy, the reality is, at the beginning, it takes a lot of time, right? But once your brand is set up, like my brand, I don't have to do anything really. The majority of my work happens in the back end, in the engine, right? That's me building my business. My brand is set up. I go through rebrands every once in a while, and that's important to note too. We can rebrand as much as we want. So with Overwhelm, I would say just get the back end set up, meaning you've got your systems in place to generate a lead, to put them into your email system. And then your brand is going to be a work in progress, right? Mm-hmm. It's not going to be this Ferrari that you have to make it perfect and shiny and then you put it up there and it's there forever. The beauty is, as a personal brand, you're allowed to evolve, and people want to see you evolve. So you can put something out there knowing that it's going to be completely different a year from now. It's going to be completely different 2 years from now. So not being stuck on what it looks like today, or not being such a perfectionist, and knowing that people like to see you evolve. If you've been following me, my brand was like orange like 4 years ago, then it was green, and then it was this. Now I'm in this black and white thing. And I know that 2 years from now, it's going to be completely different, but it's all good. I'm a human being. People are completely okay with that. And the only person that cares is us. Mm-hmm. Like when we think that everyone's going to notice that my logo here is this and that, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
Yep. Great advice, because I think it's so much more important to build that foundation, but I think it's more fun and more sexy to work on the branding stuff. But if you put the cart before the horse, it's going to be a constant struggle.
So as I'm listening to this, I've been working with health coaches and fitness professionals for a while. And just to kind of set this question up, I am a big proponent of them naming their business their name. Because when people get to know you and they recommend you and they're talking about you, they're using your name versus, ABC Wellness, right? A lot of coaches start with names like ABC Wellness, and they spend a lot of time trying to find the right name, when really it could be so simple as just naming their business their name. And I did this myself. My business when I started was called Make a Difference, Make a Living. And then now it's just Karen Paddock, right? Yeah. So because people were not getting to know me by Make a Difference, Make a Living, they weren't talking about me that way. And I thought, why am I fighting what is naturally happening here? So with that in mind, for coaches and fitness professionals that are in this space of trying to figure out, okay, do they brand themselves as a business, ABC Wellness? And if so, how do they do that? Or do they just really move into this space of personal branding? And what does that look like? So what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something definitely that comes up a lot. And this is one of these things that we cannot allow ourselves as entrepreneurs to get stuck in this creative cul-de-sac with questions and worries like this, because it's going to stump us. I know, because I could be stuck on what font to use or like these kinds of things. It will soak up your time. It will stop your progress. It's one of these things that we cannot get stuck on. And naming our businesses and stuff like this, it's just one of those things that like really, really, will drive you nuts. So people want to work with people. There's no other way around this. Like, people buy from people. Buying is an emotional human decision. So, buying is an emotional process. So I don't want to buy from Make a Difference, Make a Living. If I hire Make a Difference, Make a Living, I'm hiring Karen. I'm working with you. You're the one that spoke to me. You're the one that touched on my pain points. You're the one that showed me what it is that you can do, even if it's through that umbrella of your wellnessabc.com. People are hiring people. So I completely agree with 100% of the time, brand as a personal brand, and that 100% of the time is unless you are building a business where there's other people involved. So let's say you have multiple coaches and there's going to be 5 of you coaching under this method or this formula, or you have visions of building this out. If it's just yourself and you're building a wellness or a fitness company, brand it under your personal name. If you have a name that you're in love with, right, and you don't want to get rid of it and you worked really hard on it and you can't, then leave it. It can be ABC Wellness, but it's by your name. So by Karen, right? So this way it'll always be associated with your name. When someone purchases my stuff, they're not buying Build Your Empire. They're buying Stephanie's coaching. Right. So it's always going to be about you and what you can deliver and how you deliver it. The name as a brand, it's less important as personal brand. So I really love the idea with leading from your voice, and you're writing your emails from your voice. And I think that that's definitely the way to go. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, that's a perfect explanation. And I'm really glad we talked about this, because it is for sure something that they struggle with, and figuring out the voice, as you said. What voice do they use in their marketing, in their blog, in their social media posting? What voice are they using? And it gets real confusing.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And the other thing is, if you have your website, so for example abcwellness.com, and then you're thinking about branding your name, so karenpaddock.com, you can always don't get stuck on this. You can change it next year. You can change it the year after. You could simply do a redirect so that any business cards or anything that you have linking to your one website ends up getting transferred. Don't get stuck on the, what ifs or what about that. There's always a solution, and it could be as simple as redirecting any traffic that goes to that website. I've done I'm a domain name hoarder, so I always, I'm constantly registering domain names. I always have ideas. And it's just as simple as, putting up a simple redirect. Your web developer in 2 seconds could point that traffic somewhere else. So don't let that kind of stuff get in the way of you making decisions that make sense.
I love that. And I see this a lot too, posts in my Facebook group. I'm thinking about these different names for my business. Which one should I use? And they have no idea. And it's stalling them from getting started, even seeing. And I say, you know what? Just use your name for now. You're not married to this forever. Just here you go. You have a name. Use it. Put yourself out there. You can change it later.
And that's the thing, right? So I was a fitness professional, years back, but I still had StephanieJoanne.com. So it allows us to evolve. Like, we never know what we're going to be doing 2, 3, 4 years from now. Who knows, 10 years from now. So it's one of these things that I switched that website from a fitness, website to a business coaching website, and everyone was cool with it because they watched me grow up. They watched me evolve, and it's completely fine. So if I was, Stephanie Fitness, I did have a Stephanie Joanne Fitness. I couldn't transfer that one. So at that point, the name just makes things a lot easier. But don't get stuck or stopped, or don't go into this needing to change anything if you do have your business branded under a business name. Just be mindful to lead with your name, so it's by you. So if it's Stephanie Joanne Fitness, it's by S. Shea. And then down the road, you can always change your domain names and your platforms, and it's no big deal.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I know health coaches see plenty of big names out there, and they wonder, well, how did they do it? And they wonder, well, what do they have that I don't have, or what's wrong with me? So what would you say is the difference between the brands that really take off and those that really don't seem to gain the traction to really, build into a bigger name?
Yeah, it's the hardest thing to do. But you really have to put blinders on to what everybody else is doing. And it's so difficult. But when you can really be strategic about that and stop following what everybody else is doing and just get really in tune with who you are and who your audience is and how you want to show up, and be strategic about that, right? So, thinking about the Ferrari analogy, what people think of you really does matter, because that's your brand, right? So if it's pretty easy to say, well, what do you think when you see a Ferrari? And if you don't like a Ferrari, for this analogy, put whatever car you absolutely love, right? So what do you think? Like, you explain it. What is your perception of this brand, of this Ferrari car? So in my world, it's so difficult, but I had to really stop and say, well, what do I want people to think when they think of me? When after they've been following me, maybe they're reading my emails, maybe they've been on my website, maybe they've come on a webinar, maybe they've seen me in person. What do I want them to think of me? What's important? What's my brand? So you can build this out in advance. And if you're looking at everybody else's stuff, it becomes really difficult to figure out what you're all about. And then, of course, what you're not about. Because as much as you want to attract people, you also want to repel people. You want to be for a specific person. And the craziest thing is that while we have to put ourselves out there now in front of the world to see, because you're putting your stuff out on social media and anyone could look at it, when you're so specific and so strategic about it, you're going to speak to that 1% of people out there. And that 1%, can be $1 million business, because those are millions and millions of people. So it really is putting putting laser focus into, how do I want to show up? Right. So for me, I'm a business coach, and I always wanted to make sure that I was professional and people took me serious and I wasn't just this young, playful. And then I said, you know what? That's not who I am. So when I started taking pictures in blazers and making sure that I was like a business coach. So I'm sure, Karen, you saw like the purple blazer and like the hair. And I'm just like looking at that. I'm like, yeah, that's nice, but that's not me. Right. So I'm doing what I think I should be doing based on looking at other people's stuff. So I really got to this place of like, let me stop doing that. Let me stop looking at anyone else's stuff, and let me decide how I want to show up. Let me decide that it's okay for me to be casual, raw. It's okay for me to not be that articulate, to have spelling errors in my stuff, to be casual in my branding. That's who I am. So that's how that's the type of person the kind of person that likes that and is going to say, you're awesome because you're you, because you talk really fast, because you're this, because that's the kind of person that's going to end up becoming a client of mine and going to end up becoming, a happy returning repeat customer of mine. Someone who values long written blog posts and articulate things that like I could never put together because that's not me. They're not going to value my stuff. They're going to think it's unprofessional. They're going to think it's probably a little bit, and that's amazing, right? Because that's totally cool. So when you're really clear in who you are and how you want to show up, right? And you decide that in advance, then it allows you to lead that way. And people are going to be really drawn to you because it's either going to be, wow, that's so cool. You're really doing you. You don't care what anyone thinks. Like, you're truly doing your thing, and that's awesome. right? Or it's going to be like, cool, good for you. You're doing your thing. It's not my style, but I can appreciate what you're doing. Right.
And it's almost like a relief to know, okay, cool. I don't have to project this persona, something that I'm kind of the same way. I'm super casual. I rarely get dressed up. I'm always in like jeans and a t-shirt, something super casual. And that's usually how I show up when I do my live streams, like on my website. So thank you for sharing that. So I do have a question for you. I have a feeling probably some of our listeners are wondering. So what is branding? Like, what are some examples that like a health coach would use or think of when they're trying to figure out their branding?
Yeah, it's definitely not just your fonts and your colors and and it's a feeling to me. Branding is a feeling, right? So it has nothing to do with feeling like my pictures are good enough or like I don't look good enough for my pictures. Like I get that all the time. A lot of my clients will think, well, I'm going to lose some weight before I do my photo shoot. And I'm like, it's not about that. Branding it's a feeling, right? So when someone comes across your stuff, what do they feel? So the best way to kind of think about this is not to use yourself as an example, because that's always the hardest example. But if you think about a few brands out there that you love, right? Like you really love them, don't think about their brand, don't think about their colors, just think about them. What is it that you like about them? It's usually going to be something about how they are or how they show up. I like how they're so real, or I like how they're so casual. And then reverse engineer that one more step and think about what is it that they did that made you that gave you that perception. It's not their colors or their fonts. It's probably in the way that they're talking, in the way that they're sharing their personal life. And maybe you saw them have like a blooper video with one of their kids and it was funny to you, and that created a feeling of, I like this person, they're relatable, they're hilarious. Maybe they're sharing, they're calling out, BS in terms of in some sort of industry, and you're like, I like how this person is real, they're speaking their mind, so what is it about these brands that's creating this idea for you? And it's going to be something that they've done to make you feel something. Right. So it's not my pictures and my brand and my logos, but it's being strategic with what do I want people to think of me and how can I create that? So when I post things of me and I'm being like, it has nothing to do with work and it's like a weird Snapchat picture and I'm being goofy, that's very much my brand, because that's what I want. That's who I am. That's how my friends know me. The same things I would send in a private chat. I want my audience to know that I don't take myself seriously. I don't consider myself this like polished person. And I'm not this entrepreneur who gets up at 5 and like, no, like I don't do that. Right. So I don't ever want my audience to think that. And I share that. And I'm just like, I'm struggling. I don't feel like working, or, I tried to wake up at 5. It hasn't happened. Like I woke up at 9. I share that. Right. So like, these are things that when people hire and work with people they like. Mm-hmm. So when you can, be yourself, but be strategic about what it is that you want people to feel about you, and just do that. The more like authentic you are, the more vulnerable that you are, the more real you are. Just do that. Be all those things, share all those, whatever it is about you, and people will be drawn to that feeling.
And have that come across in your social media, wherever you are, like
your
on
emails,
your website,
everything.
Email. Okay, great. So it's more, your messaging is so much more cohesive, right?
Because it's you.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like, would you start talking to your friends in a like, in bullet forms and without the jokes and without like, I'm not saying everyone has to be jokes. That's not what I'm saying, but that's for me. Like, would I start sending my friends information without throwing in a little joke or something in there? Like, it just wouldn't happen. Mm-hmm. We don't speak like that. Like that's the way that we communicate. So that's how I communicate with my audience.
Yep. I love it. And I think the overall message that I'm hearing is, don't be afraid to be you and have that come across, because that's what people are going to fall in love with. The right people, your ideal clients are just going to fall in love with you because you're being real.
And that's why it's like, people are so worried about, there's so many other coaches out there. There's so many other people doing what I'm doing. I'm in a crowded industry. When you truly, put those blinders on, and it really is the hardest thing to do, but when you truly do that, and you realize that you don't need the world to subscribe to you. You don't need these millions of followers. You need a small, loyal tribe in order to have a really successful business. And once you have that momentum from your small, loyal tribe, like that starts to grow because now you have momentum. But when you put those blinders on and you focus on, let's say, I want to get 100 people to subscribe to what I'm doing. I want to build a relationship with them. I want them to know what I'm all about. I want to show them that I'm good at what I do. And I want to build a community of people that know me for being A, B, C, D. So you decide how you want to show up, the same way I decided I wanted to be funny and I wanted to be a little bit unprofessional, and I want to not care about my spelling, and I want to be real about my struggles with my morning GSD hours. Like, those are all things that are important to me that I share. So everyone has to decide and actually write it down. Like, how do I want people to perceive my brand? So when you do that, it's just incredible how you're going to get all these people showing up and being like, I love that you're just being yourself.
So do you have anything, and I know you gave really good examples, how our listeners can stand out and not just be another health coach? Like, do you have any like specific examples? I don't know.
Yeah, the first thing is the mindset thing of honestly, do not worry about it, because there's only one you. And while there's a million people out there that are struggling to stand out, they're all struggling to stand out amongst each other. So you be that guy, you be that girl that's saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to decide in advance, what people are going to think of my brand. And I don't need to take over the world right now, even if those are my ambitions, but I can build a small audience by truly being me. And when I do that right, that thing is going to snowball and gain momentum. And the reality is most people can't get out of that beginning stage because we're consumed in trying to stand out and trying to do what everybody else does. So really doing the work to be strategic is step one. But step two, when I started, it was pitching podcasts, pitching media, pitching local TV stations. And through doing that, and we can talk about that, but through doing that, I landed, a TV spot for 5 years on Canada's #1 morning show. So I was in the media, and I was like, nobody is pitching for my place here. No one is asking for this. Like, then I started building relationships with local magazines and news. And I'm like, they were so excited to get my content, because these places, and I'm talking about media, I'm talking about blogs, not just TV, but blogs, magazines, local industry magazines, websites. We have to remember that these platforms, they are content providers. So them being content providers, their job is to create amazing content or so that their readers are interested, and of course then they can have advertisers. So they need this content. So don't think that someone's doing you a favor when you're pitching to get, to write an article in a local paper or in the magazine. It's a need. It's a two-way relationship. So when you look at it that way and you say, well, I'm not begging you to feature an article about me because that would be really cool. You're looking at it and saying, hey, I have a really great idea that I think your readers are really, really going to love, and I would love to write that article for you. And it has nothing to do with promoting me or promoting you. It's just put yourself in the shoes of, I would love to help create great value for this platform. And in return, you're going to get featured. You're going to have all this as seen on credibility. So I really used media to build my brand and to separate myself from everyone else. And I'm telling you, it was unbelievable how easy it was, because nobody else was doing it. Everybody else was asking for favors and can you feature me and can you this? It's not about that. It's how can I help you, create great content. So to make that actionable, if you're someone and just like, I haven't started, I'm just getting going, or I can't go on TV yet, or first of all, you can do it anytime, because as long as you have content that other people will find valuable. Health and fitness and wellness, it's the best industry because it's always relevant to the general population. So the majority of platforms are going to be interested in health and trends and fitness trends. So don't worry about that. They're just looking for an expert voice. Speak on something or that you're comfortable with. You don't need to be known for everything. So choose your thing, whatever that is, hormones or weight loss or whatever your thing is. And find some local ones first. If you've done nothing, find the local, magazine. reach out to the editor and use the strategy of not saying, hey, I'm a local wellness expert, I'd like to get featured. Use the strategy of, hey, I've been reading your publication and I think it's awesome. I saw something in there. I read a piece last week about so-and-so, and maybe something recent happened in the news, or maybe you have something that you want to weigh in on, and let them know that about this awesome idea that you have that would be great for their readers, and pitch it to them that way. And it really is nothing more. You find their email address on the third page when you flip to the editor. Maybe you got to Google them, but I just did that. And I did that over and over and over again. And what happens is you build relationships. And then they come to you and they're like, hey, could you do this? Hey, could you do this? Right? So not being afraid to hit send, is the big thing. But separating yourself, once you've got that, let's say you get published a few times, and then you've done a few local ones, and then you go and you do TV because you've done a few. Media and publicity starts to snowball, right? Because people want to get people want influencers to contribute. So if you've contributed to a whole bunch of local publications, magazines are going to want someone who's been busy and who's been out there, right? So now what's going to happen is your client's going to Google your name, and all these things are going to come up of all these different expert articles that you've written. And now you're going to email out every time to your audience, even if that audience is small, but you're going to email out and you're going to say, hey, I'm so excited. I was just featured on so-and-so. Then you're going to post that on your social media. And then people that are creeping you and scrolling down your social media accounts are going to see, wow, she was featured here. She was featured there. So that the perception, going back to the Ferrari shell, is, wow, they're busy. They're an expert. They are doing something. So this all contributes to standing out. And when you look at what are the majority of personal brands doing in the health and wellness and fitness space, they're definitely not doing that. So if you can get yourself to laser focus on who I want to be and how I want to show up and what do I want people to think of me, and then do the work to say, let me get my brand out there, let me get my name out there, let me publish some articles and do those things, and then let me promote that, you're already tenfold above what so many people, like what the majority of the industry is doing. And that's just what I did.
I love it. Thanks for bringing that up, because we just did an episode 15 with Lisa Simone Richards, and it was a whole episode all about how to get free.
Oh, good. That's going to come in handy.
Coverage. So that just ties in perfectly with that. So yeah, I love that. Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah, when we met, SJ, you were that was part of your presentation where you had talked about, all the places you had been, newspapers, magazines, television shows. And you were the first person that explained to me as part of that presentation, like, if you, no matter what you're doing, how big or how small, like, screenshot it, put in a file, right? Like, put it out there, because these are your credentials. This is your social proof. And you want to make sure that the people that are in your tribe right now and all the people that will be in your tribe down the road get exposed to all that social proof, right? So
100%.
That was a new concept for me. And I kind of backpedaled at that point and went, oh, well, I had done this and done this and done this. And I finally went back and took screenshots of all that and created a file, because I did not have that before. I mean, I promoted it at the time, and then it was like, okay, that's done. Now I'll wait for the next thing. But you were the first person that brought the concept of really recycling that content.
I call it shameless promotion.
Yeah.
I call it shameless promotion because, again, it's an online world now. It's no longer about referrals, and it's unfortunately no longer about being really good at what you do or having a really great product. Successful businesses in this marketing landscape take off based on what people think of you. So whether we like it or not, we have to get on board. So what that means is we have to show off what we're doing. We have to show off the results that we're getting with our clients. We have to show off the credibility that we're getting by getting featured in all these different things. So if we're really awesome and everyone's saying we're really awesome, but we're keeping that, behind the scenes, and we're keeping that a secret, it's such a disservice, because we're not converting those people that need to see that stuff in order to get a chance to work with you, in order to feel like, they want to work with you. And when you think about where do you spend your dollars, I hire a ton of coaches. I definitely don't do this on my own. When I think about what makes me invest, it's what did I think of them? It's the results they're getting for other people. It's the social proof that they're showing me. It's them, being strategic about how they're messaging me and branding me, and it's how they've been featured and they've been out there. It's all those things. It's not necessarily always what you're selling, right? It's all the other stuff around it.
So in a way, this is you're strategically creating demand in your business by attracting as much exposure as possible to all the things that you've done.
You've just nailed it. You can't sit there and wait. You can't sit there and be amazing at what you do and be passionate with what you do and want to help people and be awesome and then hope that it's going to come to you. And that's just not the reality. And this is where we have to say, okay, I want to make this happen. I want to build this business. I want to build this brand. I need to attract people that are going to happily be willing to pay me what I'm worth. Now it's our job to go out there and get them. And it's our job to put our brands in front of them and to show them that we are credible, that we are good at what we do, that we get results. So this is where we have to build that brand by just doing that work that we talked about, being strategic in how people perceive you, and then taking a look at and saying, well, who can feature me? Who else has my eyeballs is the easiest way to look at that. Like, where is my audience and how can I show value to that platform? Can I write them an article? Can I give them an interview? Like, what can I do to show value? And then taking screenshots of all those happenings and promoting that to your audience and just doing that, rinse, wash, and repeat that over and over again. And definitely don't be shy in terms of, I feel like that's a key, or I wonder if that doesn't feel good. People need to see that. It's really important that they need to see that. And you celebrating that you've been featured, it's not necessarily like, look at me, I've been featured in this article, but it's saying, hey, I wrote this really great article about so and so and so, and it was featured in, ABC. I would love for you to read it and tell me what you think. Right? You don't have to promote it in such a way that it's like you're just, pumping your own tires all the time, but definitely get it out there.
Yeah, I mean, everything you're talking about, just in my mind, it just keeps coming back to the same thing. If you authentically approach your business this way, business becomes a lot easier. If you're not trying to be something you're not, life just got 100% easier because you're just going through your day just like you do every other day with your friends, your family.
Yeah. And it feels so much better.
Yeah.
To not have to be perfect and to not have to fit into this little box of what everybody else is doing. If I look at, all my friends that are in the online marketing space and I look at what they're doing and how I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I cannot write those emails. I cannot write those blogs. I cannot do what you guys do. Like, I just can't do it. And I used to think that I need to get better. And I hired productivity coaches and I hired all the books to help me wake up earlier and to do all these things. Because in my mind, a successful online marketer did these things. And I was so hard on myself for so long. And then I just came to the point where I don't need to do that. I don't need to do those things. I can just be myself. Here is what I do and here is how I roll. And this is what my audience gets. And as long as I'm extremely confident in my product, I'm extremely confident in what it is that I sell. The rest of it is just fun. Like, the rest of it is just doing what I want to do and definitely not doing what I don't want to do.
And I'm so glad you brought up the point earlier about putting on the blinders. I'm always reminding people, and even I have to remind myself to do this too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's so easy to fall into that comparison trap, no matter what stage you are of your business, no matter what you do. So I think just a reminder, just do you. It's going to feel better, flow better, and you're going to be more successful. And people are going to be drawn to that.
It's so hard, but if you can, it's also not going to happen overnight. It's like you get those like entrepreneurial muscles where you just kind of, it takes some time. But if you can really get to that point when you really don't care what everyone else is doing and you wish them best of luck and you're just like, that's all cool. I see you doing that. I'm watching you. Looks good. But I'm on this lane over here and this is what I'm doing. And this is the audience I'm building. And here is what I do. And here's what I focus on. And here are all the things I don't focus on. And that's when I really got to that place, it was like, oh, I don't need to do the YouTube channel. I don't need to do the podcast. I don't need to do the Twitter account. I don't need to do LinkedIn. I can just go live. I can just talk to my audience. I can do my webinars and that's it. And it's awesome.
And you're in your happy place.
In my happy place. Because I don't have to do all the things I don't want to do.
So is there anything we haven't touched on here today that you feel is important or it will influence our audience in one way or another to make a move in the right direction?
Yeah, I think, something that keeps coming up is this feeling of, overwhelm, and, I don't feel like I'm ready, or I don't feel like I feel like I have to build this thing before I put myself out there. And it's, it was always like, I was a personal trainer and my clients always wanted to like lose some weight or start working out before they hired me. And it was like, this doesn't make any sense, right? Like it's the same thing when you're building this business. And if you're someone who's worried about going live and you're worried about putting yourself out there, the reality is that you just have to do, and you just have to do with where you're at right now, because doing is what's going to propel this thing forward. And it really doesn't matter. And social media is moving so fast these days that, let's say you go live and you completely bomb it. Let's say that you put yourself out there and it's like the worst post you've ever emailed, the worst email, like, it doesn't matter. And that's the beauty of this whole thing. Like, it really doesn't matter. And when you send that email and the email goes out wrong, and then you go live and that live goes out like it was horizontal and you didn't say what you wanted to say and you got nervous and you turned it off, it's not like, it might be bad the next one, but it's not going to be as bad. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, I just didn't care. And when you just kind of approach this attitude of it, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to show up with what I've got, and I'm just going to start, because the process of starting it, you're going to grow this entrepreneurial muscle, which the people that are making money online and the people that are actually successful building their audiences, they've learned to not care. They've learned to just do regardless, not to be perfectionist, to not worry so much about what people think. And it's kind of fun that way, because it's like my audience expects that from me. And it's okay to send out an oops follow-up email. It's okay to say, if you saw my live yesterday, I was horizontal the whole time. Like, I'm back to talk about it, because that's okay. Like, there's no need to stop when you stumble. So it's really important to just overcome that fear of putting yourself out there, because the reality is the only way that's going to get better is if you force yourself to do. Because when you do, you're going to say, okay, well, it wasn't that bad. You got some good feedback. Then you're going to do again, right? So you just have to do it. So you got to hit send. You got to go live. You just have to do it. And you cannot wait for anything magical to happen until you're ready. It's just do it before you're ready.
Yep. It's okay. It's okay to be scared. Just do it anyway. Yep.
100%. I'm still scared.
Yep.
It's weird if you don't scare, because you care. So you're going to be scared.
Right.
So this is the perfect lead-in. Kathleen and I love to always include some type of specific action item, one action that our listeners for this particular episode should take. And we'd love you to share what you feel the first step or the action that they should take for this episode.
It's kind of a two-part. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So the first thing is to, it's difficult when you're branding yourself, right? Because it's like, it's easier to look at someone else and say, oh, you would be really cool if you were known for so-and-so, right? So the exercise that I do all the time when I get stuck in my own brand is, fast forward a year from now and write your bio, write your biography, and write it in a way that talks about what people think of you and how you show up and what you're known for and what you're good at, right? So write your biography. I do this all the time, and rewrite it until you love it, right? So I write like my wiki profile, and I've learned to just be really shameless in doing it, because I have a big vision, and if I want people to know me for something, then I need to be bold in my statement. So write your bio in a way that is you, that is bold, that excites you. You want to have this really, really excite you. And then take a look at what you've just written, and don't rewrite it as much as you want. And it can be a journal process. It can be a Google draft that you keep looking at. And then look at that bio, and then think about at least 10 different platforms where you think that they would love your expert content. They would love some content from you. And this means the name of the platform. So it could be a website, a blog, a local publication, local news, a radio station, podcast. Think about 10 different publications. So get the name, get the website URL, and the owner of that publication. So it could be the editor. If it's a print publication, it could be the producer. So you can just do some Googling. Once you found the platform that you think would be a great fit, just Google for, the publisher, or you can find on any contact page of a website if you think your content would be awesome. So just start getting a little spreadsheet going, and this is going to be your media list. But you've got nothing and you're in social media, nobody right now, it doesn't matter. Have that game plan. I'm going to build myself this brand. This is what people are going to think about me. This is what I'm going to be known for. This is what I'm going to be all about. These are going to be my speaking points, whatever it is. And here are the 10 publications that I am going to reach out to in the next, I want to say, 3-4 months, because I think pitching 10 over a year, I like to be a little more aggressive with that, because once you get the ball rolling, you'll see that hitting send is pretty easy. So, just get 10 on a spreadsheet for now to have the intention, and just hit send. You don't need to have anything in order to, reach out to someone. So I would really just love to see more people hitting send, because it really just is like when you get that first one, and then it's just incredible. Like, it's not that difficult, and everyone just has this huge hang up. So I would just love to see more people getting themselves out there like that.
That's awesome. I love the two-parter.
The two-part.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So tell us, I know you have a free training that you're going to tell our audience about, and also share with them where they can find out more about you and how to connect with you. That'd be great.
Sure. So my website is stephaniejoanne.com, my two first names. Joanne is my middle name, by the way. My last name, it's Dutch and we can't pronounce it. So for the brand, it's Stephanie Joanne. So my website is stephaniejoanne.com. My social media is Steph Joanne. So it's STF Joanne, Joanne. And the free training, it's an online training. So I walk you through like how I build this process of building my online business. I run these trainings weekly. So you can find that stephaniejoanne.com/webinar.
Which we are going to link to that in our show notes. So just for simplicity for everyone. And the show notes can be found at thewellnessbusinesspodcast.com/episode 18. So again, thewellnessbusinesspodcast.com/episode 18. And we will link to that free training called, correct me if I'm wrong, SJ, Create and Launch Your Online Business in 60 Days.
You got it.
All right. Awesome. So, Kathleen, do you have any final questions or?
Oh my gosh. I took like 4 pages of notes. I am not kidding. Like, did you watch me here? I was like frantic.
I saw that. I was like, whoa.
You shared so many good tips. Yeah, I'll have to go back here and review my notes later, because there's some things that I need to work on. But thank you for sharing.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me, ladies.
Yeah.
Every single time I hang out with you, SJ, I learn something new. And just like Kathleen said, there were some aha moments for me today. So we appreciate it so much.
You're so welcome. It was fun.
Thanks for being here.
Hey, everyone, have a great week. And we will see you 1 week from today back here on the Wellness Business Podcast.
We'll see you next time, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Wellness Business Podcast. For show notes and free resources, visit wbpodcast.com.